Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis. And this episode is brought to you by my sponsors, BCW Supplies. Use code POPAnimeComics to get 10% off your entire order. As well as we can talk about my Redbubble shirt, which is right here. It is making fun of Gundam, Taco Bell, and the most interesting man in the world. And it is available on Redbubble, and you can get 16 different colors of your choosing are available, as well as my metal card, which is up on eBay from my Kickstarter. So go buy that stuff because I need the money and it helps to support this show. Having said all that, though, obviously I have with me comic creator Christie Shinn. So welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going?
Now I'm excited. I'm excited because obviously this was last minute. Pop Van Sant sort of introduced me to you, and you got a Kickstarter going on. And you're a little bit in Facebook jail right now, so obviously we're helping you out promoting your show, and your Kickstarter is Demon Bitch. So What's the basic premise of this Kickstarter before I get in trouble?
Well, okay. Do you want to know the official story, or do you want to know the motivation behind Demon Bitch? I'll tell both. It's fine.
But let's just start at the beginning because we all want to know. With a name like Demon Bitch, you know, you got to come up with a great story, and there's got to be an amazing thing going on with it.
Okay, so Demon Bitch is a low-level demon from the 13th pit of hell, where people throw their dog shit in gum wrappers. And she wants to bring the second coming of Armageddon, but the first one never happened because she's stupid. So basically, she's just a fucking wannabe, like that I've seen a lot of sort of on-model actress whatevers are in LA. And again, I'm not shitting on people that are actors and models, the ones that actually do it for a living. They actually work hard. You know, there's a certain level of professionalism. But the wannabes, they're like into cocaine and all sorts of fucking stupid ass drugs and shit. And all they do is party. They're just flakes. They don't do anything. They're just kind of also just mentally really kind of screwed up people, like moral
So you're talking
wise.
about the Kardashians.
Kind of, except the Kardashians actually do make money, so it's like okay, but they're not. But these chicks are not good at making money, and it was based off a few girls I really couldn't stand, and they just like fucking are useless. They just bum rides off people. They take a load of drugs. They sleep with a fuck ton of people, but they're like just kind of gross in general. And I'm not saying like if you sleep with more than one person, you're a terrible person. It's just that they're gross about it. And they'll like do anything for blow, and just they're just useless people, and they're just whiny and the most codependent people ever. And it was just like a couple of those types of girls actually stabbed me in the back. So I said, okay, fuck you. I'm going to do a cartoon about you guys. So it's this stupid shit mostly about what girls do. But then there's other people that kind of do other things that like, you know, there's other people that piss me off about things. So it's like, then I start drawing them.
So well, this show just became a mature show in about 10 seconds. So wonderful. I knew what we were going to get into, everybody. I clearly knew because I actually read the book and I read the comics. So even to go from the idea, because plenty of people upset a bunch of other people, and people joke about saying, "Oh, I'm going to get even with you and do this," but even to make that connection and then do it with this character and even say, "Hey, I'm going to go Kickstarter," and all that stuff. Like, how did all that come about? Because it's one thing to say, "Hey, these people have pissed me off," but then to say, "I'm going to run a Kickstarter and I'm going to run another one and then another one and then actually get stuff published." I mean, because that's a whole different level.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I essentially like have like, I don't know, endless amounts of material. And I don't know if it's just LA, but just I observe people doing stupid shit. And it's really like their own hypocrisies about it. Now people go like, what do you mean your own hypocrisies about it? It's like, it's nothing really deep. It's like, excuse me. But one of the things that I've noticed about people when I do draw them, it's funny because like the thing what started with Demon Bitch, I had Personal Monsters, which was a precursor to Demon Bitch. And it was like Origin of the Species, but for assholes. And that's when I moved to LA. And ironically, that's Matt Groening. That's when he did Life in Hell. But I used to read his shit a lot as a kid, even way before The Simpsons. But what was even funnier is that he did this thing where he, what was it? So it was just like when I did Demon Bitch, it was kind of like, I realized like when I'd be really angry about what people did to me or what these certain types of people did, I was told, you need to go and forget about it. You need to go let it go. You need to do this and all that. But then they go and bitch about the very same people or the same types of people. They say, but I've let it go, but I want to stab them. I'm like, sure, okay, fucker, you really did let it go. So, I mean, it's just sort of like, I've kind of gotten into the point now where it's like, if you're going to give me advice and it's the same advice you use and it makes you miserable, chances are I'm not going to take it because I don't want to be miserable. That's the thing. It's like, there's sometimes you have to do the right thing. It doesn't feel good, but it's like, don't tell me to do shit that makes you miserable because it really doesn't work.
See, this is so interesting because what I find about advice is you can give me as much advice as you want, but if money's attached to your advice, I'm going to listen to it a lot more. If somebody wants to tell me how to run my show, then you can pay me. You could buy equity in this show if you want. That's an open discussion. But if you're going to just tell me how to run my show, but not pay, not even support the show, not buy me a coffee or anything like that, then that's what your opinion is worth. Nothing. Because it's what you didn't contribute. And there are other people who are contributing and saying, hey, yo, I'll keep it $15 because I would like to be on your show and I want to see it. And well, they get to have an opinion because they actually brought economics into the foray, for instance. And so I found it very interesting. And what I find interesting about Demon Bitch, and I only read the latest one, is that it was really dealing with COVID. And it was a very interesting political position, I guess, for lack of a better word, where it was showing different stages of what was going on and how everybody was experiencing different things. And even the LA artificialness, I think it was in there. And so what is this like to really go take a political opinion? And it was not left or right. I think it was just more societal. And it was almost satire and it was social commentary because that's what it really is at its heart. And it's so interesting because it is nice to see this. And I'm a big fan of Californication, which is what this reminds me of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like for me, it's just I saw like the shit for what it was. And again, it's my own personal viewpoint, but I thought it was kind of retarded how everybody was like screaming at each other in Dolby stereo about fucking everything. And I'm like, guys, just kind of calm down and sort of be in here. But it was like one side would get pissed off, the other side would get pissed off, and they come at you. They come at everybody. I mean, I had people that were like, the guys that wear the mask holes and everything, where they look down on people that didn't wear it to a point where it's like, oh, you guys should, like, I literally caught people on Facebook saying they should be put in camps. And I'm like, okay, stop. Right. And then, but on the other side, you had people like, oh, these people are just going to die in 5 years. It's like, fuck off. I have friends and loved ones that have been vaccinated too. So fuck off, So it's just like, I really got tired of that shit. And it's like, and everybody was screaming at each other about everything. And it's like, wow, nobody looks at each case like individually. And it got to a point where everybody was so shell shocked and angry and triggered about everything. You had the George Floyd thing. And now and I kind of laugh at it because it's like, you guys were all fucking angry about it. Guess what? You just fucking never say his name now. It's like, all right, what was the big deal about that? And I know some people might get pissed at me for saying that, but it's like, okay, you guys touted this whole thing either way, and then nobody fucking talks about it. It's like, oh yeah, we kind of forgot about him, whatever. And I'm just like going like, that was my commentary on society, because it's like, oh, you go and grab onto this fucking thing, and after like it served its purpose, you just dump it in the garbage. Like, all right, fuck you guys, So it's just, so much for your fucking going on. And then they were catching influencers like dressing up and said, I'm here for BLM and stuff. And I'm like, oh Christ. And then the ensuing issues of any coming from any of the groups that were coming out, all this other shit, it was just getting to a point where it was almost farcical to me. It was like, you had the Stop Asian Hate, you had all this other shit going on, but nobody was really calling out the real problems in the shit. They were just making this facade. Oh, it's just about this. It's like, no, it's not just about this. There's other shit that goes on that's in that's relevant too. But it's like, you guys won't want to fucking admit it. You just guys want to fucking picture and do a hashtag. It's kind of like when they did the Boko Haram, bring our girls home. Nobody remembers that because that was like about, like I think in Africa, like where they would kidnap the young girls and then force them to be married off. And they said, oh, let's do a hashtag. That was around 2012, around that time. And nobody remembers that now. It's like, oh yeah, let's stop child marriage and stuff. It's like,
And so to even talk about all this, because obviously your book deals with a lot of this stuff, and we see it from Demon Bitch's perspective and a few other characters, and it's the idea that I think people when they read this, no matter where you go, whether you sort of sword a bit of the hypocrisy, or maybe you didn't see the hypocrisy, or maybe it just didn't dawn on somebody because they're like, look, there's a raw sensitive issue with one thing or another. And then when somebody sees it now in a comic, they're like, oh, now I can see a little bit more of a different viewpoint. Also, politically, the landscape has changed, and things are also, 2, 3, 4 years later, people have a different opinion. And so, what is this like for you? Because you really are providing a different filter and a different lens on some of these issues. And that's really how I view your book. It's very much a commentary and satire, and it's a very lost art, I feel.
Well, it is. I mean, the problem is that people go on these facades of being liked on social media. And I mean, we all fall into that trap. We want approval. We want this, we want the likes. We want the attention. I mean, why are we doing shit like this? I mean, let's face it. But the thing is,
I'm in for the money. I'm in for the money, guys. Clearly.
Well, yeah. I mean, but you understand, like, when I spread my fucking shit around, it potentially can bring me more money because it'll bring more and more audience. Like, I get that part, and I totally understand that. But it's just sort of like this thing. It's weird because there's this sort of weird, I don't want to say culture, but like with Demon Bitch, one of the things I make fun of is that I've literally caught girls. Now, I'm sure guys do it too, but I've literally caught women fucking faking shit online. Like, oh, I went and and they write this whole long fucking story about like how they slipped and everything. And then they say, oh, look, I have a compound fracture and I've broken my ankle. Okay. I didn't have a compound fracture, but you get like a lot of bruising. The bitch looks like she fucking just like twisted her ankle. It's like, oh, look at my broken ankle. It's broken in 2 places. So she points to her ankle and then she points to her foot. And I'm like, that is not your fucking ankle, you idiot. So it's just like, like in Family Guy, like Peter Griffith makes fun of that. Like the hospital stuff, you're like, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, there's that culture of like, pay attention to me. And in this Kickstarter, that's one of the first levels of Demon Bitch. It's like, I'm making a Demon Bitch computer game. And one of the first levels is Demon Bitch actually like, she wakes up and she doesn't have the attention she wants. So she does whatever to get attention or she'll die. But it's like, that's how some of these people operate, like the whole influencer thing and everything. I mean, there's some influencers that actually do stuff, but there's a lot more of them that are fucking idiots. Like they're just like, as I said, for some of the protests, they just had somebody film them while they held up a sign all dressed all pretty. And I'm like, really? Like, seriously? And you just had all sorts of just crazy shit going on. And it's like, you do realize this is a whole ass media war, right, guys? Like, the government has their own thing. People have their own thing. Influencers have their own thing. Like everybody just joined in and it's like, holy crap, what is this stuff? So it was just ridiculous in my own opinion. And I just had to comment on it because I found it fucking ridiculous. Because I was just like, okay, I understand. Like,
Yeah, to even talk about that, because one of the things that I think is going on right now is obviously, and I'm presuming I know your politics, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably more conservative, I believe, unless I'm off base completely.
I'm more central.
Fair enough.
I explored both sides. I have.
But the idea is that you're calling out bullshit, and you're calling what it is,
Yeah.
and you're calling a spade. And I think what's happened in society, and it's now starting to happen in comics, is that comics has always been liberal by definition. Now, back in the '90s, and if you go through DC's history, you had somebody like Chuck Dixon, who was a very well-known conservative, working with Graham Nolan, who they created Bane, and who was the editor on Bane, but Denny O'Neil, who was extremely progressive. There was never any issue between Chuck and Denny, and they'd be at Batman retreats having political discussions into the middle of the night. But the idea, what's now happened at DC and Marvel's, if you have a certain political ideology, you're found out you're not going to get any work. You're not fired. You're just going to get less and less work. And I think what's happened now is that with, obviously 2016 and 2020 and going into 2022, people now feel emboldened to call out bullshit and call a spade, and there's other alternatives to do this, where 15, 20 years ago there was not. And so I think that's something that's going on right now, especially with Kickstarter and the ability to produce a comic. So what is that like? Because I don't think your book could have been made 10 years ago.
You know, I would probably have made it anyway, but I'm more of an underground person. But to be quite frank, I think for the most part, I'm kind of at this point now where it's just like, if I like the fucking story, I'll read it. I don't believe in censorship of any kind, personally. Like, you read it, you read it. You read it if this is why you figure out it's bad or good, why it's subversive or not, and you have to learn it. I think it's kind of dangerous for people to pick and choose, like the powers that be, to do that. And I've just noticed on Twitter and on just in general, like, that's why I put my stuff up on Twitter. I interact on Twitter, but I don't really like getting into bullshit on Twitter because honestly, it gets really fucking stupid. Like, sometimes people get into these stupid ass Twitter fights and it's like so dumb, and it takes away from the actual comic itself. And some of the comics shit I find kind of annoying because it's like, this is the thing. I don't care what the fuck you write about personally, but write it well. And some of the shit that they've written is just garbage. And I'm just like, and I'm just talking about anybody, you know, write me a good story. And a lot of times they'll do this. Oh, does this check mark all the fucking appropriate things? Okay, great. We got a great story. It's like, no, it fucking sucks.
Well, let's even talk about that, because this is just my opinion. And I'll preface this with my background. So I buy and sell variant comics on eBay, and I do rather well with it. So there are certain books that I don't even care about what the story is. I don't know what the story is. I just know it's a 250 print run of Paul Green, and I bought the book for $25, and then I sold it for $75. And so my whole thing is that there's a bunch of people like me who don't even read stories, but we are looking for cover art. And then there's other people who are looking for a particular story, and it is sort of the check mark. But also, I look at a bunch of books and I'm like, how the fuck did this thing get approved? And how the hell did this get into a publishing house? Because I'm like, there's nothing here. And look, you know, if the person did it in a 3-issue arc, took out sort of all the fluff a little bit and kept it a little bit tighter, it would be an okay story. Maybe it'd be even a good story. But I'm finding that a bunch of stuff is not being checked. There's no gatekeeper, not a gatekeeper saying you can't do it, but an editor is maybe a better word.
Well,
And so,
yeah, the quality of story, I think the thing is that it has to be well written. And I think it has to be well written with the logic of the characters involved. And that's what I have a problem with, because they don't really do that. Like, one of the things I'm not really a fan of, like the book that came out, and I feel like an asshole talking about it because I actually really like the artist. And again, I'm not going to say the artist's name because she had no hand in that, you know? So I really like the artist, but my name is not Starfire. And I really tried to like that book. I really tried to read that book. I could not get into that book. And I'm not trying to shit on it just because of what it's just, to me, the character of Starfire was not really well represented. You know, the character herself was not very engaging. I really tried to like her, honestly. Like, okay, goth, 13-year-old chubby chick. Okay, cool, whatever. You can have a good character, but there was just nothing about her I found interesting enough. And it was like, and it's, I know some people are like going, well, you know, she's a 13-year-old. It's like, there's 13-year-olds I've talked to that are quite interesting, and they don't like have superhero lives or whatever. But I just couldn't with this person. Like, I've been 13 once. It's like, there was nothing I could find that was actually remotely interesting about that character. And I felt really bad because I really loved the artist. And,
so to even talk about that, because I didn't read it, but I am curious, where I'm a huge Teen Titans fan. I'm big into it. I love Starfire. I love what Amanda Connors and Jimmy, I always get his name wrong, did with that 12-issue miniseries of Starfire. I love what they did with her. I thought it was brilliant. I thought the fact that she was sort of blonde, but smarter than a blonde, for lack of a better word. And I thought it was just a fun Starfire series for 12 issues. And I absolutely loved that entire book and reading it. But one of the things is that obviously the book seemed like it was white knighting. It really did. And from the reviews I read, and the idea is that they were trying to, as you said, sort of check a box versus tell a good story. And I didn't read it, and maybe I'm off base. And if I'm off base, I'll be more than happy to admit that I was wrong, because I'll get around to reading it in the next 2 weeks. But like, I got a feeling when I'm going to be reading, I'm like, okay, this is okay, but there's nothing here that's breaking new ground or even a new interpretation. Is the sense I got from like 10 reviews of it. So
I tried to read the book, and what the biggest problem I found is that Starfire was an absent mother. Like, she did not talk to her daughter at all. And I'm going like, okay, if you know the character of Starfire, she would at least make an effort to speak to her daughter. But I couldn't finish the book because like there was none of that interaction. Now, I could understand if she was absent, okay, she has to go out, superheroing or whatever, or do stuff with the Teen Titans. Okay, I get it. I'm not saying that she should be there all the time, but she should make an effort to like leave messages for her daughter, because Starfire is a very nurturing, sweet person. Like, she always reaches out to people and always tries to reason with them and always tries to, and there was none of that in the book. And that was kind of a bothersome thing. And I know they were trying to focus like, oh yeah, Starfire, I am not Starfire. Great. But she's your mom. She should at least fucking say, hey, there's fucking pizza in the fridge or some shit, and it's like, they didn't even do that with her. And that's what I kind of had a problem with it. It was just like, there's this absent thing. Yes, you're focusing on her daughter, but she doesn't get any interaction from her mom. That's the thing that kind of gets me. And that's the thing that was kind of lame about it to me. And I was just like, knowing my interactions about Starfire, like reading about her, she would make an effort to talk to her daughter at least once a day or something. So it's just the fact that she was just an absent mother and just had nothing to do with her daughter's life, I think was kind of stupid too. I mean, that was the big thing that kind of I found a turn off. It's like, oh, I just come home and it's empty and everything, and my mom doesn't love me. It's like, all right, whatever,
And this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are leaving DC, Marvel, and even Image and Dark Horse and those companies, because the writing isn't making sense. It's not logical writing. It's also not good storytelling. And those places are becoming very much a profitable IP farm. Whether they're barely profitable, that's up for grabs. But it's the idea that all the movie stuff is really tested in the comic world. And then they basically come with a good concept in a comic, and then they run with it in a movie. And then the movie makes $1 billion or $2 billion or $3 billion. And then you're off to the races. And that's where the real money is. Because that's what pretty much is going on. And there's rumors where they're vertically integrating DC essentially, and that's what they want to do with this AT&T spinoff, Warner Brothers, Discovery now. And it's a whole insane concept in a lot of ways, because the real money is in TVs and movies and merchandising, and it's not in comics.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, for me, it's like, it's kind of one of those things. Like, yes, it could be called an IP farm. Yes, it really depends on quality store. I think, a lot of the big comic companies do have a lot of life left in them. They've got a lot of collateral, but some of them do need to kind of change their tune. As I said, I don't care about the subject matter. Just write it well. And sometimes some of the writers are kind of shitty. They just say, oh, let's just do the checkbox shit. And it's like, you can represent these people and actually write a good story. I think you insult them even more when you don't. And
so I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, that's what annoys me about it personally. It's just
I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and he's black, and we were having a discussion who's a better character, Static Shock or Miles Morales. And he actually said Static was a better character, because he said Miles Morales is a very shallow character, where if you actually look at what Miles has done and the culture Miles represents, it is actually very limited. If you go through Static Shock's history, his culture is much more represented in DC Comics, and there's a lot more references to how he was raised and even how he thinks and his adversities that he faces and what he has to overcome. And it's a very interesting discussion, because while Miles is bigger than Static, Miles Morales is not a deeper character. In fact, Miles is a very shallow character, and I mean, you look at Miles Morales, he's, Black Spider-Man, and he's cool looking, and I like Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's fun, but I don't use Static. And if you go through the comic stuff, even when Static is on the Teen Titans, there's a lot of interesting things that are going on with Static. And it's a fascinating thing, and it's the exact opposite of lazy writing. I don't think that, necessarily when they created Miles Morales, they had a brilliant concept and they had a huge bullpen to pull out of with that character. And it's almost one of the laziest comic characters and in the inception. And obviously it's been further developed since, but it's not been massively developed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting thing when you actually dive down into that character. So it's super interesting.
Well, it's kind of funny because Miles Morales kind of mimics Peter Parker's in some ways, but except it changes the characters of which die. Like, his uncle dies, but he doesn't live with his uncle. He lives with his parents, or he lives in depending on Enter the Spider-Verse, it could also depend on he lives at the private school, but he has his parents. His parents are alive, but, his uncle dies at some point, but his uncle was also his apparent nemesis. So it's this whole thing. So it's kind of like, okay, so you took the Peter Parker story and kind of twisted it. But then again, when you think of the Spider-Verse, the version is different versions of quote unquote Peter Parker or Spider-Man. So you got to look at it that way. And I'm kind of at this point now where I'm sort of I'm just kind of there's stories that are rehashing and tellings. There's rehashings of Epic of Gilgamesh. There's rehashings of the Bible. There's rehashings of this and that, the other thing. It's just, do we understand the point of the story or the elements of the story to do it? Right now, I'm working on with a writer regarding depression and PTSD. And I won't get any more into that. I'm going to say that. But I'm doing the artwork for it. But it's kind of cool working with a writer, even though I've written myself. But it's cool to work with a writer. And it's sort of, he even said it's a marriage of parts. But it's kind of one of those things that you kind of have, whoa. Mike, sorry. But we're one of those things where it's you kind of have to work with them. And it's kind of weird because you want to have your vision of what they wrote or what they did, but you can't overwrite it. So you kind of have to have this discussion. And I'm all for creative discussion. There are times I've done stuff for writers where I've looked at the script and I say, I think it probably would be good here, here, and here. And usually they think it's good. I'm not saying that, but I don't try to force my point. You know what I mean? I make an argument, but if it's their story, it's their story, But I'll point out stuff like, hey, this scene was supposed to be this, but it's supposed to be all this, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you got to talk to them as an equal because you're both in it. And
so, isn't it one of the things about comics is that when you're writing a novel, the only thing you need when you're writing a novel is internet access, a laptop, and electricity, which is an extremely low cost to producing and writing a novel. When you're producing a comic, you need a lot of people involved. Whether you need a writer, you need an artist, a colorist, a letterer, you might need a cover artist involved. And so all of a sudden, when you have more people involved, there's more room for the writer's idea to slowly transform. And so it gets very interesting because it is an extremely collaborative component. And so what is that like? Because with Demon Bitch, you're the writer and you're the artist. So it's your baby and it's your development. And obviously, I'm sure you have people saying, hey, you might want to go slightly here. You might want to change that over there and something like that. But it's mostly you. But when you're working with somebody else, you have to interpret what they wrote, but what they might have had, they might have said do A, B, C, and D, and you thought D should go before C. And then it turns out that it's better. And then, so what is that like? Because that's a very interesting thing, especially coming from not necessarily in a while working with a writer.
I would say with Demon Bitch, it's like go for me because it's one shot. And I've worked with on my graphic novel Sepulchre, and that's a big writing thing. And I wasn't as shitty as I thought it was at the beginning. Which is pretty funny. I don't try to get into it. It's I don't set a low bar, but I just kind of have no expectations of how I get into it. And then I get notes back. Some of them suck, some of them are good, and when I mean they suck is like, Jesus Christ, because it's like I have a thick skin when it comes to artwork. It's like, all right, get it with artwork. With a writer, I'm not bad, but it's sort of like, oh man, I still feel kind of like a neophyte or a fucking newbie. But when I work with another writer, we have a discussion and I say, well, I see it like this. But I think that's actually pretty common with artists and writers themselves. So, there you go with that. So I think it's like you have to respect each other. That's a big thing. You have to have like an idea, like for him, for the writer, we talk about depression and PTSD. And for me, like as of recently, this has not happened in a while, and I'm going to be very open and honest. Like I was depressed for the past 3 days. And it wasn't like to the point where, oh, I didn't shower or like I wanted to jump off a bridge or something. It wasn't that, but I was depressed. But we get into a funk and we got to just deal with it and just move out of it some of the time. So it just basically, sometimes I've noticed like with depression, at least in my case, it's like you kind of have to reassess, or your brain's like puking up shit that it doesn't need anymore. But you have to kind of honor that as well. So it's like when he was writing a comic about it, I got it. Like when we would talk, when we become friends, it's like we talk about our experiences. And so it's like I get him on a certain level and he gets me on mine. Like, it's like for some things, he is ever the Countess DB. That's funny. But it's one of those things where you kind of have to, what can I say? It's sort of like I don't want to give too much of it away, so I'm trying to struggle to find the words.
It's all right. We can table. We can talk about Demon Bitch. And everything that's going on.
It's just like at one point, it's like he's coming from a certain perspective, and I am too.
Because what I like about Demon Bitch is that it's nothing that, like, I could go to any page in your book and have a pretty good idea what the hell's going on, because it's nothing too long, it's nothing too serious, and it's commentary on society and what has happened pretty much in the COVID era, and I think it's much needed in a lot of ways, because we have, as you stated, like, Demon Bitch isn't getting the attention she wants. Her friends are sort of faking things. I think Egg Lady is faking some stuff. And then there's a few other people who are faking some shit and getting disgusting. And let's be realistic, COVID didn't bring the best behavior out of humanity. Collectively, it created very much an attention-seeking society. And I'm the first person to say, look, I created this show in the middle of COVID, partially because I wanted to get attention on people who were getting screwed over. But I also wanted to draw attention to me, and I saw an opportunity. And I have drawn attention to me in that fashion, and it's just continued, because why wouldn't it? But this is something that's super interesting, because it's much needed. Like, sometimes a book is needed. I think your book is very much needed right now in society, because everybody just needs, I think, a refresher saying, wait a second, maybe we weren't the best we could have been in COVID. And I think this is like a slap in the face for a lot of people, your book.
Well, and it's kind of like, what do they think that was the best? Like yelling at people to wear masks, not wear masks, get vaccinated, did not get vaccinated, stay home, not stay home. And I think looking back at it and how we behaved, we were kind of shitty to each other, to be honest. Like I've had to deal with that too on a personal level, but I mean, I learned how to mitigate it so I didn't get the majority of that shit. But it was certainly it was interesting. But then again, like I had a pancreatic tumor before COVID, so that kind of put me in a different state than a lot of other people. But, I just got to a point where I got very annoyed with a lot of people either way, because I just got kind of annoyed because nobody else had anything to do. And then they got to fixate on that. And it's like, okay. So it's kind of like, the tagline is COVID-19 made us all stupid. Now we get to laugh at ourselves. This means you. And it's like, I mean, it just kind of sucked that way. And I think that was kind of shitty how it happened, but it happened the way it did. And what do we take away from that? What do we learn? But it's kind of funny, because I think people are kind of like, let's forget about the whole thing. It never happened. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, very, very much so. People are like that. And it's very interesting. And obviously my experience was different than other people, where I didn't really stay out of the entire political discussion during COVID. I didn't really get into people's fights with people. And I was just like, okay, everybody can do whatever they want to do, and I'm gonna go do what I want to do. And, I kind of just, I don't want to say I took my head in the sand like an ostrich, but I just avoided all of it because I was like, look, I'm not gonna be able to shift anybody's opinion on anything. So why even bother? Instead, I'm gonna go create this show, which was meant to highlight wrestlers who were getting fucked over because all their bookings were screwed, and said, hey, let me at least try to sell some t-shirts for them in their store that might subsidize their income a little bit. And maybe they could put food on their table if they sell enough t-shirts. And a few of them did okay with it, where if I brought a wrestler like $80 worth of t-shirts, and it helped them, that was really helpful. And so I made it a point, and I decided to do something sort of good, I felt. But I also think that a lot of people were just not there. And I just think that this is kind of the book that sort of reminds people, hey, maybe we should be nice to each other. Life's hard. Get a helmet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just more of like coping, because I saw a lot of people screaming at each other. And it's just, I was like, man, I don't want to be in the middle of this kind of shit. And, it's like I had to make my own life as a result of it. So I just worked hard on this book for about 2 years. So it's been kind of like pretty hardcore in some ways. I mean, as I said,
yeah. Oh no, I was going to ask because obviously there is going to be people who don't get the concept of this book and don't get that it's a social commentary, it's making fun of things, and that it's somewhat of a joke, but it's also calling things out and saying, hey, we were pretty shitty during this time period. And it also is a big risk because it does put somewhat of a target on you. Anytime somebody pushes an idea and sort of says, maybe not purely in your face, but says, hey, we're kind of stupid during this thing, because there are people who clearly are not happy with you for publishing this book. And so what is that like? And there's plenty of people who are happy, that you're publishing something like this, or happy to talk to you about it. So what is that like? Because whenever somebody publishes something like this, that what I view crosses and pushes the line, there's always pushback. And so I'm curious how that is for you, because clearly, you're triggering some people.
Honestly, it's weird. I haven't had too much pushback on the book. It's really like more of people thought it was funny, but I think it was because it was gross and disgusting. And I basically take the elephant in the room and just basically kick it in front of people and say, here, deal with this. Because I kind of just don't care after a while. I don't know. But it's sort of like, I'm kind of like at this point now where it's like, I just am kind of at this point now, it just needs to be said. And it's weird because I know some people can take that as a point of arrogance. And there's plenty of arrogant people that do take that stance. But I think what I did differently is that I just drew it as I saw it. I'm not trying to say, oh, yeah, this is my right standpoint. It's like, oh, look at this. I pointed this out. It's kind of dumb. I just went from there. I didn't go out of my way to like go and, tell people like, oh, well, because you embrace this one point of view, you're an idiot. It's more of like, God, all you acted like fucking insane, like a bunch of insane fuckers. And I just like, I have no idea what the fuck you guys were doing. Like people that I respected and knew, as I said, some of them were on Facebook saying, put the unvaccinated in camps and shit. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, I'm not trying to be like an asshole. Like, I've seen people go to those extremes on Facebook. It really like, I was like, God, guys, like, calm the hell down.
I mean, I've seen other things that were way more extreme, where I've seen people try to target me for certain things. People have, tried to end friendships with me and other people over things that really weren't that bad in hindsight. And also people that you don't think are your friends wind up becoming your friends. It was a very weird time over certain things. And I think people really go for the nuke option very quickly on Facebook and social media and a variety of other things. And it was just like, and there are people that I don't speak to anymore in the comic world because they just crossed so many lines. And I thought what they were saying was so out of whack. And I'm like, this is how you really feel though. And that's how I view it, where I think that it's this idea like when somebody says, "Oh, you should put the unvaccinated in camps," that is how you really feel. At least that's the way I view it. Because if you took 3 steps backwards, you would have been much better. This is kind of like how you're speaking when you're drunk, and that's kind of how it was. And it was very, very odd. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And the fact that the book even touches upon some of this stuff, I think really calls it out. And I think it's one of those things where it's just like, it's honesty. And I think there's something to be said about that. Whether it's good or bad, and whether you want to see the honesty, I mean, your book really does provide sort of I'm calling it like I see it, with a slight bias, but at least I'm calling it to what I view as the honest truth. I think there's something there, and I think that's lacking in a lot of comics right now.
Well, I think people are afraid to be honest. Like they're afraid to apologize because once you apologize, it's like, oh well, then you're just gonna go fuck you up anyway. And I'm like, okay, or the apology is not sincere, whatever it is. And I don't really tend to apologize for too many things. Now, I'm not trying to say if I actually did something wrong, I don't say I'm sorry. But what are you defining what I'm doing wrong? Like, let's say, okay, let's say we're hanging out and I ate too many of your fries, let's say. And you said, hey, that's not cool, or what? I'm just using like a general term, right? I ate too many of your fries. That kind of pissed you off. And you say, hey, I really didn't appreciate that. Then I would have been like, oh, you know what? Sorry. Or like you said something that kind of hurt my feelings. All right. Sorry. And
Or you're late to something by 30 minutes. Like, for instance, let's say that, I was late by 20 minutes. I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry for being late, and I mean because that's not a core value apology, if that makes sense. You're just sorry that, hey, I'm sorry that I kept you waiting, right? Type of sorry. So, like, because I apologize, but if I offend somebody on a viewpoint that I have, so I offend people all the time on Kickstarter, where I'm like, your Kickstarter might not be healthy, and you're running it like a business, and you might be running an unhealthy business. And if that upsets you, I'm sorry that you're upset, but I'm not sorry for what I said.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, I try to be pragmatic about a lot of shit. Like, I do this kind of thing where I shoot for what I want, but I'm pragmatic about what's there. It's like I tell people, well, what do I have to deal with? Like when I got elected in CAPS, I said, okay, what are we dealing with? And I did have viewpoints like we're coming out of COVID. This is this and that. That's that and that, and no matter how crappy or shitty the viewpoints were, I had to listen to it. And again, you have to have a thick skin when you have to oversee something like that. You really do. And, I mean, it's like you try to take everybody into account, but how many people are participating? It's like, well, if you're going to be pissed off about something I did, but you never participated or gave me any of your feedback, I am not going to go and lose sleep over it. Now, I'm not trying to say that I do obviously shitty things. It's just I sit there and I'm just kind of like, okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to do to fix it? Like, one of the things that we have to take into account, we might have to do some more Zoom calls because the thing is it's an animation guild building and they're kind of held up in talks with studios. That's all I can really say. I mean, I don't know all of it. I'm not part of the animation guild, but there's a lot of negotiation stuff going on. So I said, okay, well, I said, just tell me what I need to know. And that's it. It's like, you don't need to divulge any personal business about anything. It's like, all I need to know is that how does this affect me? And then go from there. But you have to be pragmatic about it. You really do. And in a way, it's sort of weird because then I shoot for the stars. It's like, well, isn't pragmatism the same as like being down to earth? It's like, the thing is that take into account what's there against you and for you, but go for it anyway. Like, okay, because there's a lot of, I've found this out and I thought this was great because it was not tied to religion. Now I do believe in things, but I think sometimes people feel alienated if they're not religious. What it was is I learned that faith is trust in the unseen. There's a lot of things in your 3D or what's immediately here in front of you that you don't know. Like you don't see the rest of my house. You don't see how my life is, right? So how are you going to know and assess everything and make a conclusion right then and there? That doesn't mean you never make conclusions. But what I'm saying is that you can't just go and assume certain things just by what people say or do. But yes, you can. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. But what I mean is that, okay, there's only so much that I know of here, but I'm going to go for it anyway because I don't know of anything else right now. So it's kind of like it's a thing called taking a chance, and sometimes in business and sometimes in things, even if it doesn't look great, you might as well try for a business. You might as well try for it. And again, I mean, there's
Oh,
obviously,
I know all about that. I mean, look at my January where I ran a Kickstarter for this show, and a bunch of people were not thrilled with me and didn't really get it, and said it partially to my face. They said it behind my back, but my response to them, and my response to them still is, look, I went for it and I funded successfully. And was it a struggle? Sure. Did I get partially lucky? Maybe there's a little pity in there. Who knows? But I still funded. And guess what? You know what it is? I went for it and I made an assessment where what would have happened if I didn't make it? Nothing. It would have been, oh man, it was just a rough outing. It happens. And then I would have moved forward. And then I probably would have just whined and bitched for 2 weeks. And I would have figured out what went wrong. And then I would have launched at a different point and all would have been fine. But everything has led me from January to here. And so, I took a leap of faith, for lack of a better word, but it took me almost 2 years to come over to Kickstarter as a producer of a Kickstarter rather than as a fan. So it was very interesting in that realm. But even to go further into your book, because one of the things that I also think is very cool at this point, I don't think you need to answer to anybody who's not backing your project as well.
No.
And I think Kickstarter has changed that game tremendously, where technically speaking, I don't have to answer or do any interview unless somebody paid me. It's a very weird concept where, I don't have to do any interview that I don't want to do. Like Pop sort of made an introduction, but I didn't have to accept this interview by nature. I chose to. And it's very interesting. The same thing, I think, with you in a lot of ways, where you don't have to answer to anybody except the people who pay and support your book, because that's your audience. And that's a whole different ballgame. And I understand that if you have a job and your boss says, I need you to fill out the papers by Friday, that's a little different. But when you're producing something, you're in full control. I think that that's a big deal right now. And I think it's very much why this book is successful and is going to be successful.
Thank you. It's been kind of like, as I said, it's weird because after going through 3 other Kickstarters, and I'm not saying that this one doesn't have its share of stress. Sometimes it does. It's very grueling. So I learned to make a time frame which I wouldn't go insane. And number 2, there was a time frame in which I could plan and be methodical about it. And lastly, okay, you're trying to get in my lap. My black cat always fucking has to get in my lap. But anyway, okay, stop stepping on my stomach. But anyway, so what ends up happening is that you have to take a chance. But the thing is that, I mean, I'm the most zen out of this whole thing. And I'm hitting the dead zone technically. Like they were saying, oh, you're hitting the dead zone, even though I'm kind of going like, I'm not accepting the dead zone because it's like, I do believe like, yes, there's ebb and flow, but I always keep motivated about it. But I mean, I'm not saying that you don't go through your highs and lows. At least for me, I'm better about doing it than I was like 2 or 3 times ago. Like at this point, I probably would have been, if it was my first Kickstarter, freaking out. Now I'm not really freaking out. Like I get worried or concerned, but it's just I have to keep doing it until it jumps. And you just have to adjust. It's life. I mean, do you sometimes panic in life? Yes, you do. Sometimes do you fucking break down and fucking feel like shit? Yes, you do. It's just like you kind of just have to look at yourself and do it. And I know people say, well, you just gotta look, you just got to look at what's holding you back. If it's a mental thing or if it's a like, what is it? It's a logistical thing or whatnot. And, I've got a lot of other shit going on too. So it's kind of like, I just find it interesting that, when you're focused and stuff and all this other crap that, you have to kind of like mentally parse yourself, which is interesting. So, I mean, it's like you kind of go through life and you kind of deal with the bullshit a little bit better. And you have to do it in a way that when you don't turn out to be a hateful person, or because the worst thing is that you turn out to be a really fucked up, bitter person. Now, don't get me wrong. Like you'll go through periods of bitterness and anger. Like I did too myself. Like I literally told God I would punch him in the dick because I was that miserable at one point in my life. I mean, I'm honest about it. and I believe in God. So it's like, you know, when people kind of go, wow, like they laugh, you know, like you do. But I mean, but that's the thing. It's like your journey is not going to be a nice little fucking thing. Like, I'm going to stay in this one place. Like, there are times I've moved from one side to another in belief systems or whatnot, for the lack of the better word, or attitude. And it's hard, you know, it's
I'm
like,
not laughing because punching got on the tick. I'm laughing because I know the exact bitterness and
yeah,
went through
I
a
mean,
rough
no,
time.
yeah, I don't take it personally, but yeah, you get it. Like, nobody puts it that way, but like literally I said that one night because I was so miserable. I was so miserable. And I know, I mean, it's fine that you laugh because it is kind of funny in hindsight. Like, I'm going to punch you in the dick. Like, imagine saying that to the Almighty and wanting to punch him in the dick. I mean, come on, like this small little human being wanting to do that. But yeah, no, I get it. And the thing is, that's probably why I do demon bitch, because you find humor in fucked up moments like that. You have to. It's either that or you're going to go and kill yourself. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like, there are times like where I've had very low points in my life. I'm not going to get into them because, like, you know, I mean, one on one, yeah, we could talk about it, but it's just like you have to have that sort of sense of humor and laugh at yourself. Like, I don't take myself so seriously anymore. Do I take my work seriously? Yeah. But do I take myself seriously? Like, oh, all my viewpoints are never changing and I'm this? It's like, no, I believe in my viewpoints because I fucking argue against them. I'm kind of like that about the scientific method. Like, if somebody argues this one point, said, oh yeah, well, if they argue about this, then I'm going to argue about that and make my argument more airtight or my viewpoint more airtight. But I'm open to listening to people. But it's just like, make sure you have your shit straight before you talk to me about it. And again, it's not like it's funny because it's like sometimes when I go to cons or something, people are really surprised at how nice I am because I do. And I'm like going, wow, I don't
That's
necessarily.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
This is fascinating because one of the things is that obviously there are plenty of people who come off in a particular way, and I'll use Ben Shapiro as an example. People view Ben Shapiro on YouTube, or they view him in a debate, and then he's had a bunch of people who are on an oppositional side, and he's the best example. So bear with me, everybody. Where it seems like, oh, you're actually very nice. You're always welcome on our show. Anna Kasparian, who's the Young Turks, who is politically the opposite of Ben Shapiro. They were on a debate, and it was in a beyond civil debate. And Anna said, like 50 minutes into the debate, said, "You are not what they make you out to be online." And
yeah.
a very, very interesting position. And it's not a political position, because what you can take out of that, and I'm hopefully my audience is mature enough to realize what I'm getting at. And the idea is that, you know, people view how I act online or how I act in a stream or how people talk about me in certain streams and behind my back. And that is not how I function in real life. If you come at me at a con, you're going to get a very different discussion. And I think that's what it is. And there's a lot of things. And I think that people really need to get off of social media and realize that, I mean, you're going to get me like this. This is how I act in real life, where I'm having an open, honest discussion with you and I'm telling you what I think. And I got no problem. I mean, I was on with somebody before you, and I mean, I made a very interesting statement. I said, feel free to disagree with me. And I'm very open about it, but this is how I am. But then when people talk shit behind my back, or people try to attack me online and you see me responding kind, that's not how I speak in life. And I think it's fascinating that people are, can't believe you're actually really nice. This is not, you know, you say certain things, but it's not how you are in real life. It's super fascinating. I think a lot of people need to wake up and
I was
realize.
just laughing because there's like this Family Circus meme going around, and it's not from Family Circus, but they use the cartoon, and it shows Billy or one of the boys, like he's like pointing to his brother on the floor crying, and it's just like, yeah, he started talking shit to me, but he forgot that he forgot that he wasn't on Facebook, so I smacked his bitch ass. It's like you can tell by how people talk online if they've ever been in a physical fight or whatnot. Like, it's just kind of to tell. Like, did you get into fights as a kid? Because I can tell you didn't, because you run your fucking mouth like nothing. Because like, I bet you, if you fucking like come up to, if like we ever met in person or we were at a con together, you'd fucking like skirt Artist Alley. You wouldn't be nowhere near me. But the thing is that, but you say all this shit online and on the phone. So it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, it's funny because it's like there's some people that were kind of like going, they have this attitude that I'm going to go beat their ass or something. It's like, well, go ahead and think that. I never threatened you and I never said anything, but all right, go have fun thinking that you have fun. You know, it's like,
That's funny because I've never been in a real fight in my life, but I've sparred and I've been concussed. And so like I've gotten my ass whooped in like sparring, and I've gotten like my head rocked, and I've been in, I guess, combat simulation. But like I'm a pretty strong guy, so it's like people were fucking with me in ninth grade, and then by the time I'm a senior, I'm like just changing my shirt. People are like, holy fuck, you have muscles. Like, when the fuck did this happen? Like, because I'm quiet and I don't fucking need to talk all the smack. It's just like, you know, and the idea though is that I know how to fucking beat the shit out of you. I might not win the fight, but you're going to be just as bloody as I am. And I'll lose the fight, but you're going to be bruised if we tangle. That's all I'm going to say to people is that I might not win it, but people are going to be like, oh shit, at least he fought, you know? So that's all I'm going to say.
oh, well, when I was in junior high, I think I can say this publicly and nobody's going to get mad or whatever, or I'm not going to have the authorities against me. I was a kid, okay? So when I was a kid, I got into a fight with a girl because I couldn't put my shit down. I lost. So every kid in the world fucked with me in junior high. Then the last kid, he was 3 times my size and I was scared shitless of him. He's the last one to fuck with me. I had been fucked with the whole day and I was so angry. And I had a considerably shorter fuse when I was 13. So I launched myself at him in class and we were slamming against desks and shit. Like, you get to that point when you're that angry in a fight that you feel it when you feel somebody hitting you or you're slamming into shit, but you don't feel any pain. That's how pissed off you are. And I was in that space and I actually was hitting him. And I didn't even, like, people go like, oh yeah, I was hitting him. And like, I didn't even know if the blows were landing. I was just so angry that
Man.
I was slamming into desks and shit. And he got into it.
There's a concept, and it's called the zone. And I've only been to the zone like 3 times in my life. And so the first time I went into the zone, this is such a fascinating concept. So there's different interpretations of what people call it, but I have been throwing a punch at 100% power. I don't think people understand when you throw a punch at 100% power. I'm sparring and I throw a punch and I hear the guy's like ribs crack a little bit, and I'm like, holy shit. And then I'm like, my arm, because what happened is that I was punching so hard that I threw the punch and he moved 6 inches because of my punch, because I drove that much power in. But what people don't understand is that if you punch something like another human and you're going through them and your punch is going through them, the energy doesn't flow out. I mean, it flows upward and into your muscle, and it hits like your bicep.
And it's like a second impact, basically.
It's like a rifle's recoil. It's insane. But and didn't get in trouble. And I was like, good, Andrew. And that was the end of the discussion. You just saw like the guy just like go down, and like this like the floating ribs, and like I could tell he was hurt, and a bunch of other people could tell he was hurt too. And the match was over, but like that was the first time I ever went into the zone. And then the second time I went into the zone, I was just tunnel vision, just staring somebody down, and everything was slow motion, and it was the craziest thing. And then like I don't remember the rest of the day for 10 seconds. Where I saw everything. I saw like a 360 view of everything. And it was crazy.
Adrenaline does weird shit to you. I mean, as I said, that particular moment and that, I don't even remember, but they told me I bloodied his nose and nobody fucked with me in junior high after that. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you know, it's like being in fights as a kid, like, and you see all the people talking shit online. I just have to laugh at them. It's like, seriously, there are people that are my age and older that get into fucking shit talk. And I'm like going, wow, motherfucker. It's like, you have not been in an actual physical fight as a kid, right? Ever. Like, it's amazing because it's like, even if you got your ass beat or you were the one beating it, somebody's ass in junior high or high school or as a minor, I'm just stressing that because I don't want people to think I pick fights now. But it's funny because when you've been in those, you just kind of know when to not say shit. You know, it's like, or you know what to say the shit that'll end the fight, you know, or whatever, you know, or just not engage. So, I mean, like, I've just had a lot of stuff in my life where, I mean, I had people on Fugly. I was friends with some of the people on Fugly.com back in the day. So that's how I don't give a shit on the internet. I think that helps. And they taught me how to, like, not give a shit on the internet. And actually, I got one of those, like, emails where it's like, I caught you doing embarrassing shit on the webcam or some bullshit like that. Like, they try to sextortion or something, even though it's like, okay.
I have the greatest response to that.
What is it?
It's brilliant. I say, tell Kamala I can't make it. I know Joe will be upset.
Oh, well,
and so I sent that, and then some guy responded back to me, and I didn't respond. It was brilliant because, like, who in their right mind would ever say such a thing? And that's not even me being political. It's the idea that Patrick Bet David uses that, and I stole it from him. And oh my God, because I get random texts sometimes, and I send that to when somebody randomly texts me and I don't know their number, I'm like, tell Kamala I can't make it. Joe knows why. And oh my God, it's brutal. And then, like, when you get a response, and the person's like, what? Or they're like, they don't even know how to respond. And oh my God, because if you have my number and I didn't give it to you, you deserve that response. I'm sorry. You deserve that response.
Oh, what I did was that this guy emailed me, right? And he was saying all that shit. It's like, oh, you're doing embarrassing shit. So he puts like in this fucking like crypto token and shit. And then he's like going, oh yeah, I'm going to do this crypto token. And I'm asking for US dollars, like 1147. So $1,147. And I wrote back and I said, God damn it, you're a cheap fuck. First of all, I have a sock in front of my fucking webcam, you moron. And secondly, it's like, why are you fucking asking me for such little money, you stupid piece of shit? You know, I just basically told him that. He hasn't responded. I think he was actually freaked out that a woman actually responded that way to him. Because like
my favorite thing to do also is that you won $6 million. I'm like, awesome. The person's like, do you want it? I'm like, yes. Cool, you have to fill out this form. Okay. And then you just keep doing it. You just keep doing yeses and okays. And then they say, and then I say, oh yeah, it's in my bank account, man. And then you just like, after like 15 of them, you just keep going. You're like, dude, I got it like yesterday. What are you talking about? Are you telling me that somebody else sent me something too? Man, I'm like the luckiest guy ever. Like, you see me on the news?
There's another one where, like, you know, some of my friends unfortunately had that Facebook hack or like their account got hacked by the URL thing. Like it was the URL verification. So one of my friends said, fuck, I got hacked. I said, oh, okay, that sucks. And so the account like started asking me, hey, can you go send me this thing? Cause you know, it's the URL to it's your SMS and blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, okay. Yeah. I think I got it. What's the number? And then he's like going, yeah, you got the number. I said, yeah, I got the number. And you could tell he was horny for the information. So I said, okay. So I said, oh, is it 555? And I've made up this fucking number. He said, no, that's not it. I said, oh, let me try it again. Maybe I did it wrong. Oh, is it this number? And they're like, no. And then after the third time, and they said, well, you know, please give me the number, please. And you could tell it's not your friend. And I said, okay, sure. And I said, oh, wait, is it this? And I basically went online and found like the most disgusting, fucked up gore that I could find. I copied and put it in their fucking account, put it in there. And it happened to be body bags or some shit. And they said, oh, are you in the body bags? I said, no, silly. Why would I be typing to you? And then I started going on eFucked and all the fucked up porn sites. And I was finding really horrible, disgusting porn and just screenshotting. And I sent it to them. I said, hey, is this it? Is that it? Is that it? And I think they stopped talking to me because I think I frightened them.
Oh, see. I'm savage. Somebody scammed me out of $10. I had their email, so I signed them up for all these crazy email things, like all these sex toys and a variety of other things. And I don't know how legal what I'm doing was at the time, but I don't really care because I basically signed them up for like all these gay sites, and it was a guy, and he's like supposedly was like a priest or something, and I just went all ham, and it was brutal. Like sign up for all this crazy stuff. Like, I am not to be messed with over $10. And if you steal $1 from me, that's even worse because I will go to war and I will just like literally. I basically put his email into a burner email that sends him like 900 emails a day.
Yeah.
I'm savage, but we're gonna get you and me both canceled at this rate. Like,
I don't know. I kind of don't give a fuck. I'm underground, so it's like whatever the fuck. I mean, Facebook banned me for 3 days, and I have actually got back. So it's like since then I got back. But thank you for wanting to support on that level. But it was funny because during those 3 days, I actually had a big, huge jump in my Kickstarter because it's like Facebook's done that to me before, where they're like, "Well, we're going to restrict you because you did this." I'm like, okay, and then it jumped 20 points on my Kickstarter.
so to even talk about that, I got banned in 2021 because somebody didn't like my viewpoint on a political position, and I know exactly who did it, and she's going to get a receipt soon enough, and that's a wrestling term. People can interpret what that means exactly however they want to, but I just bid my time. But I had a pleasant 7 days when I got banned from Twitter. I must say, I was pretty happy for 7 days. I'm like, this isn't so bad. It's kind of peaceful not to be around on social media. This is kind of nice. And Twitter apologized to me. They're like, we're bad. And so I'm rooting for Elon Musk, guys. I really am on this one. But I digress right there. I do want to get back to your Kickstarter. So what is this deal with the level 1 game that's coming out?
Well, the level 1 game is that the level 1 game is just basically we're completing level 1 for beta testing. So people can beta test the game and complain to my programmer how much it sucks. No, it's a selling point. She's like cool with it. I'm not fucking shitting on my programmer. She's pretty cool, but it's just essentially you play it and all that and everything else. So it's like you play it, she tries to get attention and everything. So it's like you play testing. It's sort of like a card-based kind of game, but it's for the computer. So you aggregate points to go and get that done.
So what was that like to do a game? Because that's an expansion off of the comic at this point. And that's kind of where I think everything is going anyway, where you have a property and then you either do a novel or you do a game or you do a video game or you do a short animation or you do, a lunchbox, which is what all the cool kids are doing now. Hey, those metal lunchboxes, they're coming back, guys. They're coming back.
They're great. I like as a kid, like they were great in hitting things with them. But actually, no, they just like stood up to the test of time. It was kind of cool when they got chips all over them, got fucked up. But like the construction, the old ass construction lunchboxes, those were like fucking bulletproof.
I won one through Zenoscope, and then it created like a lunchbox fetish for me. It's a real problem where it's like I got it because I knew the composer of Game of Thrones. I have no idea how I knew it. I've never seen Game of Thrones. It's one of those things that like I probably picked up in like Geek Bar trivia. Like just and it came with some metal cards, and then they sold me another one with like 8 metal cards in it, and I'm like, cool. And then I bought 2 more, and it's just like I love them because they're super cool to like display, and they're great for holding stuff. But what was this idea? Because it is super cool to do this like stuff with expanding the line. Versus it's not a comic anymore; it's now a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there's a prequel coming out about it too and everything. So it's like it's all sorts of things now. It's kind of weird. It must be interesting for George R. Martin, like just to see how much it went into this whole thing.
We don't care about Game of Thrones here. We care about your game.
Well, yeah, my game. Oh, sorry, my game. I apologize. No,
we
it's
don't care about Game of Thrones. That thing, last season, that was rough, guys. That was rough. I must say the Starbucks cup in one of the episodes, phenomenal role. Phenomenal role.
Yeah.
I must say that was some serious work on their part. Sneaking that thing in there, I am thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed here. I didn't know Starbucks was that old.
Time and space. Oh my god. So yeah, but yeah, I just like I thought it was really funny. That's all, and it was like, but yeah, it was one of those things. So, but yeah, no, with the game, it's basically her. She wakes up and she wants attention, and she's a lazy piece of shit. So instead of actually doing stuff like work and showcasing work, she has to like pose 10 million different ways and show selfies of her, like, because she's a model, which is kind of stupid because like people that I know are models, yeah, they technically do selfies, but it's actual modeling shots. It's not actual like.
I work hard on my selfies. I don't know about you, but like this is not easy work.
No, I mean like I've done some art modeling. Oh, what? Like I don't really talk about it because I'm not just like, oh, I'm a
I
model.
was making a joke. I was
Oh,
clearly making a joke. Do I look like I would do selfies? Seriously, do I look like the type of guy that would do selfies? Like,
you know, there's all kinds. There's all kinds.
I take pictures of comic books and my Pop Funkos. That's as far as I go. There's very few pictures of me on my Instagram. It's of comic books and Pop Funkos and of my interview clips. Like that's it. Like I'm not interested in taking a selfie. I am not that pretentious. There are plenty of prettier people than me. I can accept that. I can accept that. I'm perfectly fine realizing that I'm not the prettiest person here on earth. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. But it's super interesting. But yeah, because I like the fact that your property is now expanding because I think it's super smart. Because people who like a comic book or like Demon Bitch, they want more and they don't want comics anymore. They want T-shirts. They want other items out of this. And it's kind of like you have now sort of feeding the needs and the beast of your fans in a lot of ways. And I think it's very important that creators understand that. Like, I'm not at this stage with this show where people want merchandise, but I'm hoping to get there, and then I want to feed them what they want.
Yeah.
So I just think it's fascinating, but I do want to talk about the actual rewards. So a lot of cool stuff. So obviously you get the book digitally for $5, which is pretty cool. And then you could also basically bet a taste, I think, for $5 too. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is these right here.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're designed by Connie Huang. They're Hyde Hermit Studios. She's one half of them, and what it is that they're glow in the dark. The expressions are glow in the dark. So it's the fucking shitty Tamagotchi pins, Tamagotchi games that you used to play. We used to play.
I remember that game. I remember that game. My thing kept dying. It was very upsetting.
Mine kept dying too. I was pissed off. Like the Japanese hardcore, like once it died, you could never like turn it on again, I heard. So now I think because people got pissed, like that you could reset it and do it. There was ones where like my friend apparently like there was all these like legendary things like, you had to clean up its shit, right? So apparently like one person that I knew had all the shits like on the thing. They didn't clean up the shit for a while.
Oh man, my freaking Tamagotchi was not good, not good. It was a very very disappointing thing for me. It was really rough, but I digress. And then you also have this right here, which I think is the charm, and we all know what that's referencing.
It's Sailor Moon. It's like Sailor Demon Bitch. It's done by Zoralita. And she actually has worked on, I think the card game is like Return to Equestria or something. That's getting released if it's not pre-ordered. I don't have any affiliation with Hasbro, but it's funny because she does a lot of kids stuff. And I think it was either her that offered, I think she offered to do it. I said, Mary, are you sure you want to do this? She's like, yes. So it's just like,
what is that like? Because obviously everybody knows Sailor Moon and it's well respected. And then you have somebody who's working on a kids, thing. And I think she did the My Little Pony stuff. So
I think it's like it kind of gives her like some sort of license to kind of be naughty because she does a lot of she does the 3 prints in Demon Bitch that they offer.
And so what is that like? Because you have somebody says, hey, look, I want to do this first thing and that I want to be part of it because it's kind of cool in a lot of ways when somebody gets to say, hey, I do the fun kids stuff, but I also get to do this other stuff too. And Hasbro and those people don't mind. And it's kind of nice, I'd imagine, for her. And it's also nice for you as well because, well, you get somebody that people knows their artwork, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like the thing is, I get really surprised at how people like draw Demon Bitch. Like, she's a pretty simple like shape, right? And I'm kind of like, oh, okay, she's a simple shape, whatever. But it's really funny how sometimes people are going like, they draw her like fucking super sexy. And I'm like, all right. I mean, as I said, I'm not trying to be like a stickler. Like they say, oh, can I draw a thing of Demon Bitch? I said, oh, sure. Yeah, I don't get. They said, are you going to be mad if I draw her a certain way? I said, I don't give a fuck. She's a piece of shit. Who cares, right? And it's kind of a joke because it's like I do care, but it's like I don't. I'm not anal because I'm sort of like maybe it's that underground scene that I'm doing, but it's like I kind of want to see how people do it. And there are people that drew her like fucking super ass sexy, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I said, wow, that's better than what I could have drawn her. I'm not saying that my drawing's shitty. It's just like, man, I just don't give a fuck. I just draw her like a saucy body, like drew her all sexy with huge tits or something, I mean, there's ones like Michael Watson actually drew her like all like hot and fucking shit. I said, wow, that's disgusting. But it's like it's all in the context of it. So Demon Bitch is like I love doing that. And it's just really funny how that happens. It's just like I love how people kind of just go with it. And that's kind of how I want people to do. It's like I just want them to go with it.
That's so interesting because I'm now getting into the idea where obviously I have my logo up on the top there, that cute little elf. That's my logo. And now people are saying, hey, can I draw your logo? And can I draw it a little bit more mature and do it, sexy? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Just no nudity. I don't want her nude. It doesn't fit what I want to do right now with her. But I'm like, hey, if you want to draw her a bikini or you want to draw her a little whatever, I would love to see your interpretation. You want to draw her hair unbraided? I'm down for that too, and have fun with it. And it's one of those things where it's kind of fun to see somebody else's interpretation of something. And I'm looking forward to Gerardo Guzman doing that for me, and he's going to be the first one. And then, what other people are going to do because it's kind of fun. And I think it's something that is interesting in a lot of ways. And then there's this right here as well.
Oh yeah, that's Dallas Boys. He's into tiki stuff. He's another friend of mine, and he draws like really demented ass fucking artwork. And this I call it two hot dogs, and it's going to be a woven tiki patch, and it's also available as a sticker.
And so even to dive into that, I mean, this is like another interpretation. Obviously, it's got a lot of fun stuff going into it, and just offering that as well because some people like patches, some people like stickers, and all that stuff because you offer a lot of variety between enamel pins and charms and a patch because different people like different things. And I've noticed that a lot where there are people who are patch collectors, there are people who are charm collectors, there are people who just love pins. And so what is that like? Because they might not want to be interested in a comic, but they want to be interested in the pin, the charm, or the patch.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people like it's actually funny because sometimes I've been to cons and I said, hey, you want to read a book that's angry and mean and makes people laugh, right? And one guy said, oh, I don't read. And I'm like, okay, fucker, why the fuck are you in a fucking like comics? I mean, I don't say that, but why are you in a Comic Con if you don't fucking read, dude? Like that's like the stupidest answer. It's like it's kind of like one of those answers. Like I'm trying to sound smart, but I sound really fucking dumb when I say it. It's just if you just say like, "Hey, I'm not interested." It's cool. I'm not gonna be. But if you're trying to say something stupid like, "I don't read," I'm like, okay, all right, cool.
I can tell you that I know people who love Zenoscope. They don't read the comics. They like the cover art and they love metal cards.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, just say.
And so I know people who have gone up to booths and they're like, "Do you want to buy this comic?" I'm like, no, I'm just interested in the metal card. So it's so interesting because I've seen it and it's a very, very fascinating position to be in because people are like, that's kind of interesting that you're into only certain things. Or I've seen people say, look, I love Zenoscope's pins. And there are people who go ballistic over that. And every time they offer one, they buy all of them and they buy multiples. And it's just like, that's their thing. And it's so fascinating because I don't get the pin stuff. For me, it doesn't interest me, but I also like cover art. You know what I mean? It's so it's just one of those things that I find fascinating.
You must have triggered because she's like all, because they try to make it like all fucked up and everything.
Oh yeah, like
Oh,
that. Just perfect. Just perfect. And then obviously there's some other stuff too that you have in there where you have some like original drawings right here. I
yeah, those
believe
are still available. Yeah, that's Pink Eye. That one's actually taken.
this one or this one.
That one, that's Turd-Sucker, that is not taken. The other one is taken. That's the
Karma.
Karma one. Yeah.
And so obviously some sketches, and then I don't know if the original art piece sold yet that I think is part of this. And then obviously, there's all sorts of stuff where you get the entire Demon Bitch catalog, which is She Sucks, Hellfire and Damnation, Alcoholics Anonymous, Triggered, obviously, which is this one. And then there's all this stuff. I think you get physical as well. You could just get, an original drawing. You could get a swag pack with your book. Everything physical, original art, as I stated, retail packages, pretty much anything you want out of all this.
Yeah, and also the thing is, like with the books, I personally sign them, and I'll insert every rude, fucking offensive thing I can into it if I feel like it. Because I mean, you buy my books if you get it directly from me. I mean, with the exception of the retailer, because it's going to up the cost of shipping and everything if I don't ship it directly from the printer. But if I go and I just write up all the books and stuff like individually, I will sign them personally. And then what I'm going to do is that if you also pledge, like if people pledge, then I will write a fucking rude, offensive thank you note, and I will customize it. I don't do the copy and paste shit. That's stupid.
That's kind of funny. And also, when you send something to a retailer, you don't know what store it's necessarily going to, and even all that stuff. So obviously, I send things to retailers, and I'm not going to go and send a note to a retailer that might offend the shit out of them because, well, I want them to buy more shit from me. But that's fascinating. I think that's a very important thing that you mentioned as well, where the idea is that having a personal touch on your campaign is very important. I did a postcard on my campaign, and I have a hard time physically writing. So everybody who ordered a postcard off of me actually got a handwritten note from me. And I don't talk about this, but I have a very hard time writing. So getting a personal note from me is extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, it legitimately took me to do like 5 postcards, like an hour and a half.
That sucks. Do you have a physical issue with writing, or I'm not trying to embarrass?
No. It's fine. It's fine. I just have a hard time like holding a pen, and I have just like it's like an OT problem with my hands. I could type fine and everything, but like it's just like a physical thing, and it's just like weird. Like, and also I have for the last like almost probably like 18 years, I've almost exclusively typed. So for me, holding a pen beyond signing, like my tax documents every year is like that's as far as I go because all my money's transferred digitally. So like I have no use for that skill, and it's horrible. It's just like it like I feel so bad about it. Where like I guess I was born in the right time, right? Like,
Well, I mean, yeah, I think they actually had like a rudimentary typewriter back in the day too, like in the 1800s. Like I think Mark Twain actually did it. He didn't invent it, but he did do some stuff with it. But I think it failed because it wasn't done right. It wasn't QWERTY. It was actually alphabetical, but that was harder for people to do.
but like it like 5 people have my handwriting, and I'm like, wow. And like a few of them said, your fucking handwriting sucks. And I'm like, I know. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I think it's funny, but like, it's one of those things where it is very, very interesting because I appreciate people who can do personal things. Like, never again. Just never again. I'm never going to do that again because it destroyed my hand for like a good 3 hours.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, it's like you kind of have to kind of get used to it. With me, I just write like shit, so it doesn't matter. My handwriting is really shitty. It's like now it's because it's atrophied because now I type most of the time, or if I letter my comics, I have a font that I use, or I've used certain fonts. It's just like no, writing in a straight line. No, fuck that.
Yo, I'm like a horrible writer, and also it's like I'm writing in like a 3x6. So it was horrific. So it was just terrible. But I survived it. And then obviously there's some other stuff going on with your campaign too. I think these are yours as well.
Yeah, that's actually drawn by Mary Bellamy and or Zoralita, and she'll sign those as well personally.
And so obviously there's a lot of fun stuff that's going on with all this stuff and a lot of stuff, and I'm sure I'm missing some other things with your entire Kickstarter, and a lot of stuff is really happening with your book. And I think you're going to be funded because you got a few days left. You got a lot of days left, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like one of those things if it's slow, like it's been slow lately, but we've just come out of Easter weekend. Tax time just happened. So it's kind of like, all right, well, I got to go and like kind of, power through it and everything. But yeah, I mean, you just got to go and take it as it goes. You're going to have slow days. I had meteoric rises at the first few weeks, so I'm not like too worried. And I mean, as I said, it's like I keep pushing it, and with the thing with social media, it kind of rolls over and rolls over. As long as I keep putting out some output, I'm good. You know.
Yeah, definitely. In which that, I mean, I funded because I was very aggressive on social media, and I understand social media is it's a long play and very aggressive on that front. So yeah, I think you're going to be fine. And also, it's as you stated, not to put the dead zone, but everybody's got the Kickstarter point where you're like, we end of week 2, beginning of week 3. If you're running for 4 weeks, it's always rough. But I do want to back out of your entire Kickstarter, and I do want to talk about uh, your entire Kickstarter, and I do want to actually talk about comics and everything that's going on with that, and even where you think crowdfunding is going, because clearly crowdfunding in the last 5 years has taken leaps and bounds, and in the last 2.5, it has completely evolved, and it has become a viable business for a lot of people, but it's also complicated now.
Well, it's kind of different. There's actually a couple other platforms that are trying to make it like Zoop, but the two winners right now are Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and I'm not going to touch the political aspect of it. I mean, I've just known people that have done both. Where
It's well known, the political aspect. If you don't know it by now, I don't know what to tell you, right?
Yeah, I kind of just don't want to get into it because people start nerd raging, and I don't want to get into it.
But I'll say one thing, and it's not political. It's only political in comics. If you're
Yeah.
funding something like a microwave, it's not political on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. But continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. I'm just speaking only from the aspect of comics. So for me, I view it as both ways to go and build a base. I'm going to build a base. For me, I'm just used to Kickstarter because that's what I started on. I haven't done Indiegogo, but I know Indiegogo is a different animal and a different thing. Barring from that, it's just like a lot of people I know do the hard and fast Kickstarter, and then they'll do the long and slow sales on Indiegogo. I personally have not done that. For me, I'm just like, whatever about it. I don't care. But it doesn't mean that Indiegogo and this they're either bad, but those are the two main contenders. But when you have to kind of understand, at least I'm speaking from the Kickstarter side because I've never done Indiegogo, ran a campaign on Indiegogo. But my thing is that with Kickstarter, what's kind of nice about Kickstarter is that you actually build a following. And then you keep getting the following, and it's easier, and people are familiar with a name, and there are other funding avenues and highlights that you can do for Project We Love. So Project We Love, other things. So it's just like, boom, you get that done. So it's like I'm in a comfortable space right now, at least like they say, oh yeah, it's going to get funded because I'm at 70%, 71% at this point, even though it's the dead zone. But I'm kind of like going like, I'm pretty sure as long as I keep pushing, I'm going to hit past a slog.
Yeah, I mean, I did, as I stated, on Kickstarter. And the reason why I did Kickstarter is that I find that Kickstarter, a lot of people I know are on Kickstarter, and Kickstarter to me, I know more people on Kickstarter. So naturally, my thought was that, hey, if all the people who said they would support me are running Kickstarters and they're already on the platform, I don't have to convert them or convince them to create a Kickstarter account. And that's what it was like for me. So that's how I viewed it. I also said, look, a lot of big names are on Kickstarter. So why wouldn't I go and be there already? You never know what could happen if I run a Kickstarter and I get recommended. Obviously, moving forward, I probably would have done double if I put my thing under comics and not podcasting, and I got away with it. I would have been in a better position, but that's neither here nor there. But obviously, it's a fascinating thing, and I like crowdfunding, but I also have a lot of issues with crowdfunding right now
It
on
is
a lot of
stressful
things.
because it follows a trend, but the trend isn't always the same. It always varies per campaign and per the time and all this other stuff and per the thing. So I mean, I'm not trying to like interrupt. I apologize if I did, but it's just
Oh no,
like,
no, please, I don't mind. It's all good. I take nothing personal.
yeah, it was just like the trend. The trend is kind of interesting. So the trend varies per campaign. So that's what I would say.
So how do you feel? Because obviously going into it, I mean, I'm a strong believer that people say, "Oh, a rising tide raises all ships," and I think to a degree that's true. But I also think that we're right now in a bubble of projects being funded, and we are really in a media bubble, which is what comics are. And it's very, very alarming to me as an individual because I'm saying, wait a second, there are more projects out there. And statistically, whenever you have more media by nature, that means that the audience gets further and further divided. And people have to make choices on what they buy, purchase, and even follow. And so I'm curious how you feel about that because obviously the winners always eat the losers. And so right now, when there's 500 projects on Kickstarter, naturally there's going to be winners and losers because money is an infinite resource, but it's not a purely infinite resource for everybody. And I'm guilty of this where I got like $30 every month to spend on Kickstarter, and once I hit that max, I'm out of the game till next month.
Yeah.
So clearly, like, I'm curious how you feel about that because that could be completely wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
I think it's like trends, personally. I think there's trends like where a bunch of people do Kickstarters, and I think there's a saturation point, but then they kind of ebb out and do that because there's always going to be like a group of people doing it. So you kind of catch it on the sweet spot, and then you kind of go into the other thing. So it depends. Like, and also it's how you market your thing, it's how you push your thing. Like for me, I mean, looking back, I'm kind of more relaxed about pushing my Kickstarter than I was in the other thing. Because before I would just boom, 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 boom. But I noticed like if I just did it enough times, like twice or once or twice, I could actually get through okay. Because if I did it more than X amount of times, then Facebook would just basically put a kibosh on that. So it's sort of like right now, it's sort of like I'm just pushing like every day I post something or I do something about it. But I don't try to inundate the shit out of it because it's sort of not a good thing to do.
yeah, I mean, I had a philosophy where what I would do is that I would be on a 4 day cycle with my Kickstarter. So I would put it in, 15 groups one day, then 15 groups, the next 15 groups the next day, the third 15 groups the third day, and the fourth 15 groups the fourth day, and then I go back to the group one on the fifth day. And all of a sudden, what it would do is that it was only 15 posts per day, but it gave some room for everybody to calm down and then re-pop up. And then I would change things, use cool images and things like that. And I found that to be very helpful. But obviously, it's a grind and it is very, very complicated in that realm. So obviously, that's something that I think is fascinating. But stepping outside of Kickstarter, I'm curious how you feel about conventions and even selling at cons because I haven't been back at a con in almost 2.5 years, and I am still waiting for things to settle down. And also, I have a different viewpoint because this to me is easier, and I have other business interests that I'm doing, and I'm making more money selling stuff online and buying and selling comics. And I'm about to have the greatest eBay year I've ever had in my eBay business, where I could buy directly what I want to sell from basically whoever I want directly at a big discount, and then I could flip it on eBay and I don't have to leave my house. And versus going to a con and doing that and buying a table. So I'm curious how you feel about cons, selling, and even the idea where do you need a bigger digital footprint, or are cons still viable for selling, or is it even just a hybrid at this point?
I think think personally, I mean, I don't do that much online selling. I do have an online store and an apparel store, but I found it easier to sell at cons. And I'm actually okay with selling at cons. I don't know if it's just me and my near death experiences or whatever, but I know some people like were really nervous about it, but I somehow wasn't very nervous about it. I just said, well, it's just what I have to do. And then I just went ahead and sold at cons and I did pretty well. So it's like, I can't complain. So I would think
It has nothing to do with death for me. It has nothing to do with death or being terrified of COVID. It's that I want to sell to the world. That's who I am, though. It's like I want to be global, and I don't want to be
yeah,
local. And so that's
yeah.
how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I'm kind of going like out of state and stuff. I did my first out of state con in Boise, Idaho. I mean, but I was a guest and it worked out great. I mean, as I said, it's sort of like, it's sort of weird. It's like you have to be relentlessly spreading on both ends on your social media and on your, what is it? And on your, and personally. And I don't have a problem with going to out of state cons or throughout California or whatever, but it's like just as last year I got invited to cons. So it's sort of that's kind of adding to a nice thing and basically getting tables at cons. And since I'm the president of CAPS, I can try to use that to kind of build a bigger network for the organization. At least that's the plan. It's just been kind of hard because like cons are also adjusting due to post COVID. So it's like getting a table is kind of wonky a little bit. Like with WonderCon, we used to have a table for CAPS. For San Diego Comic Con, I think there used to be a table, but ever since COVID, it's been kind of wonky. And like some of the con people are kind of getting back into it. So it's sort of like playing where it goes. You kind of have to go where it goes. I think I'm going to be.
That's why. Maybe I've never had a table at a con, and I used to do panels. And what I found is that a lot of this stuff, I get a free ticket, which was nice, but it never really converted to anything for me. And so maybe that's why like this converts for me. And so maybe it's the idea that I found what I'm good at and I found something that's working. And obviously, if something's working and it continuously works, you keep pursuing that until it doesn't work. At least that's how I view logic. And so me selling on eBay and selling on Facebook Marketplace, it's working. So why would I go and test something that has never worked for me or that I've never even done before when legitimately I'm doing great in X? Like that, and that's how I think. Where until
yeah, go with what works, but kind of branch off in little tiny things that interest you. I don't think that's bad.
But that's just how I view things, and obviously, I'm happy. I'm making a fuck ton of money on eBay, so and then I like the way money smells. The scene in Deadpool when he sniffs the two guns and he's ingesting. That's how I am with
like
like
I'm
250s.
so touching myself tonight. Yeah,
that's how I am.
Like
With like I want to go, and this is gonna be my ritual when I reach like 50,000 every month on eBay. Which is going to be probably happening hopefully in the next like 5 years. Is that's the goal that I want to sell every month. Is I'm going to go to the bank every Friday. I'm going to ask them to pull out 2 crisp 50s, and I'm going to smell it like Deadpool smells the guns. And you're just going to like it's going to be the weirdest thing ever. It's going to be the weirdest shit. You're going to be like, what the fuck's the matter with you? And it's going to be great. I'm going to like TikTok it all. It's going to be great. But I digress.
The best where he's just like. So touching myself tonight, just like it was just funny as fuck. I was laughing my ass off because I like it when people like say shit that's not expected. And like, here's the thing: you want to have like dialogue that it matches the character, but I hate canned dialogue. That's why I kind of like Quentin Tarantino because he just says all sorts of crazy shit in his movies because you can tell he loves movies. He loves the fuck out of movies. Spielberg, I mean, he makes the movies, but you could tell he's like kind of jerking off after the 20th blockbuster. Yeah, okay, I'm doing this. I know it works, right? But with Quentin Tarantino, it's like, I love this shit. I love fucking movies, right? If movies were a woman, I'd have sex with it every night. That's how they all, that's how movies. He loves fucking movies that way. And how he writes the dialogue, it's good fucking dialogue for the movies, if you get what I mean.
Oh, it's brilliant. The entire Deadpool, the first one, it's one of the most brilliant movies ever made in the last probably 30 years. And it's brilliant, but enough about Deadpool because we've been talking for like an hour and almost 40 minutes, and I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself because obviously you got a Kickstarter. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be canceled I don't think my sponsorship journey after this interview is going to go too well, but that's all right. I knew what I was getting myself into.
Minority, come on, minority woman.
Hey! I knew what I was getting myself into. I'm a big boy. I can handle myself. In order for me to become Joe Rogan Jr., this needed to happen. But I digress right there. Where can people find the Kickstarter? Where can people support you? Where can people follow you on social media? Where can people pick up your other works and anything else that is relevant?
I have a link tree, and it's basically where you can find anything. The Kickstarter's on the link tree. I mean, the Kickstarter has its own link, but it's easier if you go on my link tree, Horror Studios. Everything's on there. That's my apparel. That's my art and print store. That's my main website. And there is also my Kickstarter as right now. So,
it's in the comment section, everybody, for everybody to check out. So Linktree's in the comment section for everybody to check out.
And if you want the direct link to the Kickstarter, it's in the chat too. I put it in the private chat, but I think
it's in the description up above. It's in an hourly link, but it will bring you right where you need to go, everybody. So it's either above you or down below you. And so you can check that out both on YouTube, on Facebook, in my Facebook group. Everybody that's there. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll put it in there too, but chances are you're going to be listening to it after the fact that the Kickstarter's over. But I'm pretty sure there will be another Kickstarter that it will direct you to some way, in some shape or form, or to an Etsy store or a Shopify store or some type of store, not sure, but a store like that. And then as far as I'm concerned, obviously I got a bunch of stuff, so I am just going to keep saying this, though. You have to support indie. It means a lot because obviously me and her are not Marvel DC, and all the money goes into producing these books. So really, when people have Kickstarters, go actually pick up their Kickstarter, support their Kickstarter. If this is not a book that interests you, but Christie has something that is interesting to you on her shop or in some fashion, pick that up. If you're just interested in pins, you can just pick up a pin because that helps to make all this work. But I get it. If money's tight, one of the best things you can do is share it out on social media because a share goes a long way and it's free. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go share it out in that fashion. Also, as far as I'm concerned, obviously I appreciate shares. I appreciate people saying, hey, share this interview out. Follow me on Facebook at Pop Anime Comics. Check out my YouTube, Pop Anime Comics. Come bother me on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics. I am Comic Book Knowledge on TikTok. I have a bunch of YouTube stuff under Comic Book Facts. I have a lot of other things that are going on. So you can come find me pretty much anywhere under Pop Anime Comics, Conversations in Pop Culture, Conversations in Pop Culture. Shorts is another YouTube channel I run. So you can come bother me there. I have a Buy Me a Coffee if you feel like you want me to have a six-pack for working my ass off here. I truly appreciate it. I do like my twisted teas. And, well, if you're doing 4 to 6 interviews a week, you might need a beer too. So I'm just going to say it on that realm. But in all seriousness, the money actually goes right back into this show to help keep the show functioning because sometimes I have sponsors, sometimes I don't. And I appreciate everybody who gives a fuck about me. But more importantly, I actually want you to like and share this video because it goes a long way. If you don't want to buy me a coffee, but you like my t-shirt, it's on Redbubble, guys. There's 16 different colors you could choose from. And if you want to support stuff like this and really cool t-shirts, this is how you do it. And the money from this shirt goes to support this show along with this metal card. I only have 40 of these left. And these are from my Kickstarter. Once they are sold out, they are not going to be reprinted. So definitely go check that out. And that's everything I got. Links in the description up above. Enough of me selling because my voice is getting hoarse. And I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, basically, come on there. Go get the Kickstarter. We need this book in the world. I mean, it's according to you. And according to everybody else, people just want this fucking book to be made. And I want this book to be made. And I always have delivered on all my other Kickstarters. Like, I'll either deliver it to you personally at a fucking con, like you come to my table if I'm tabling at a con, or I just send it to you and I send rude shit. And maybe if I feel like awesome, I'll just send you guys something extra. So, but, I mean, it's just that I always love humor. I love a good story, and I have to stay true to my underground roots. That's what I got to do. Even if I go mainstream, I have to be underground. That's it. It's just, I love Boiled Mike Diana. And if you don't know who the fuck he was the first American cartoonist to ever be jailed in America for obscenity. And I have 2 of his pieces. He's an awesome dude. He's really nice. He's actually displayed in like my gallery and stuff. Like I curated a show at a gallery that I'm an artist in. So
Well, I'm not going to push too hard because I'm already in enough trouble. So on that point, everybody, that's a wrap.